Emily lived in a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, where the mornings smelled of dew and wildflowers, and the nights echoed with the songs of crickets. She was 10 years old, with a heart full of dreams and a longing for companionship that she couldn't quite put into words. Emily's mother had passed away when she was very young, and her father worked in the city, only visiting home on weekends. She lived with her grandmother in a quaint farmhouse, surrounded by fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. Despite the love her grandmother showered upon her, Emily often felt lonely. She spent her days exploring the forest, writing stories by the lake, and pretending to have adventures with imaginary friends. But every night, as she lay in bed, she wished for someone real, someone who would be there when she woke up, who would understand her without words. One evening, a fierce storm rolled in. The wind howled through the trees, rain lashed against the windows, and thunder shook the house. Emily sat by the window, watching the storm rage, when she noticed a small figure huddled by the garden gate. Without thinking, she grabbed a raincoat and rushed outside, her heart pounding. There, trembling in the cold mud, was a tiny, scruffy puppy. Its fur was soaked, clinging to its frail body, and its eyes were wide with fear. Emily scooped the puppy into her arms, feeling its rapid heartbeat against her chest. She carried it inside, ignoring her grandmother's concerned scolding, and gently dried the little creature with a soft towel. The puppy, a golden ball of fluff once it was clean and dry, quickly settled into Emily's life. She named him Loki. He followed her everywhere, through the fields, to the lake, and even to the small village school where he waited patiently outside until classes were over. Loki wasn't just a pet, he was her shadow, her protector, her best friend. They spent every waking moment together. Emily would lie on the grass, reading stories aloud while Loki rested his head on her lap. They chased butterflies, played hide-and-seek in the woods, and splashed in the lake until the sun dipped below the horizon. For the first time, Emily didn't feel lonely. She had Loki, and that was enough. One summer afternoon, Emily wandered too deep into the forest and lost her way. Panic set in as the trees began to look the same, and the sky turned a dusky purple. She called out, her voice shaky, but only the rustling leaves answered. Loki, sensing her distress, barked loudly and began sniffing the ground. He darted ahead, pausing to make sure Emily followed, and led her back to the farmhouse as her grandmother stood by the porch, tears of relief streaming down her face. Years passed, and Emily grew older, but her bond with Loki only deepened. When she turned 18, she got accepted into a university in the city. Leaving Loki was the hardest decision she ever made, but her grandmother promised to take care of him. On the day of her departure, Emily knelt beside Loki, burying her face in his thick fur. "I'll come back, I promise," she whispered, her voice breaking. Loki licked her face, wagging his tail slowly, as if he understood. Life in the city was fast and overwhelming. Emily threw herself into her studies, but her heart remained tethered to the farmhouse. She called her grandmother every day, asking about Loki. "He waits by the gate every evening," her grandmother would say, and Emily's chest would ache with longing. During holidays, she would rush home, and Loki would greet her with boundless energy, leaping into her arms like no time had passed. But as the years went by, Emily noticed the gray creeping into his fur, the way he moved slower, how his once lively eyes grew dimmer. One winter night, Emily received a call from her grandmother. Loki wasn't doing well. Without hesitation, Emily packed her bags and took the first train home. When she arrived, she found Loki lying on a blanket by the fireplace, his body frail and tired. He lifted his head with great effort, his tail thumping weakly against the floor when he saw her. Emily curled up next to him, stroking his fur, tears spilling onto his coat. She talked to him all night, telling him about the city, her dreams, and how much she loved him. As the first light of dawn crept into the room, Loki let out a soft sigh, rested his head on her lap, and closed his eyes for the last time. Emily's world shattered. The farmhouse, once filled with laughter and life, felt unbearably quiet. She grieved deeply, feeling as though she had lost a piece of her soul. But she knew she couldn't let Loki's love end with his passing. In his memory, she started an animal shelter called Loki's Home, a sanctuary for abandoned and injured animals. She poured her heart into the shelter, caring for each creature as if they were her beloved Loki. The shelter grew, supported by people touched by her story, and Emily found solace in knowing she was continuing the cycle of love Loki had taught her. Years later, on the anniversary of Loki's passing, Emily sat by the lake with a new puppy nestled in her lap, looking up at the sky. She smiled through her tears, feeling Loki's presence in the gentle breeze that rustled the trees and the warmth of the sun on her skin. Love, she realized, never truly fades. It lingers, echoing in every heartbeat, every memory, and every act of kindness. And in that way, Loki would always be with her, her guardian, her friend, her forever home.